Hello everyone, this is Mike Javer with NEPA Weather Academy coming to you with our first video ever. Now, besides any technical difficulties here, just bear with me, this is my first time trying this. But we're basically going to outline the week ahead and what could potentially be happening in the near future. So as I mentioned, I posted a snowfall map this morning that had a more aggressive call than what models have shown with this system. First off, what I have here is the GFS model. Usually, as I said, models don't tend to do very well with these systems, and again, it's still a little uncertain of what may happen. But I'm actually going to pull up the NAM here because I think the NAM best illustrates what we could be seeing tomorrow afternoon and into the overnight hours into Wednesday morning. Now, this is a very weak system. I mean, it was very progressive. Our pattern continues to be progressive, but we're going to take a look at the jet first. The jet's always important. I always like to do a top to bottom approach when it comes to looking at these storms. Again, we have a really potent jet streak here. We're talking winds almost 170 knots up in the atmosphere, which is really strong. And basically, what you could do with this jet streak is you could basically split it into fours like this. And basically, when you have the right entrance here and you have the left exit, those areas are favorable for rising motion to produce precipitation potentially. But that's what you really need for a storm in general. You need lots of rising motion. So basically, as I mentioned here, right entrance region, and that includes Pennsylvania here as well, especially our region, NEPA, and into central Pennsylvania, and even into southern PA, where most of the snow is actually going to fall with this system tomorrow. But just taking a look here, right entrance region, this area is more favorable right in here for rising motion with this system. So that's why I really thought that the precipitation shield at first would be expanded more northward than models show. And again, this is still completely possible. But the problem is we have a stubborn high pressure system that you'll see up here that's kind of suppressing the system to the south. I mean, snow is going to try to make its way up. If it falls, it's going to be light. It could create some slick conditions, especially in areas south of I-80. Again, if you're really north of I-80, not really expecting too much, maybe a coating to an inch at best. And in the northern tier, if anything flies up there, it'll just be a few flurries and probably nothing accumulating at all. But that's just one of the things I like to look at there. And now we can move on to our vorticity field. And vorticity, as I mentioned, it's just a measure of spin in the atmosphere, but it's also a mechanism of rising motion, especially with any kind of storm, any kind of season that we're dealing with. So as we move throughout the day tomorrow, you can start to see these little pockets of vorticity showing up here. And this is why I think that the precipitation shield will be a little bit farther north than what's modeled. Now, it's not going to be incredibly north into like New York or anything like that. But most of these models are showing the storm very suppressed, and it is going to be suppressed, and the highest snowfall totals will fall in southeastern PA or in south central PA as well. But up here in our neck of the woods in any PA, anywhere south of I-80 has the best chance of seeing any accumulating snow with this system. Likely not much, maybe an inch or two at best. But it's good to see that these little pockets of vorticity are appearing on here, which is important to get precip going and potentially expanding this shield northward. So it's something to look at. We have no shortage of moisture either, which is also very important with this system. So again, even though it's not going to be a big storm at all, minor accumulations cannot be ruled out. And you're going to see that in my final call in just a little while. But we have two other storms to be dealing with for the rest of the week. We have the one tomorrow, as I mentioned, and we have one Thursday, and we have one into the weekend as well. Tomorrow's system, all snow if it falls. I don't see any mixing potential with this system. There's going to be plenty of cold air throughout the atmosphere, and there's no way this will mix over. But as we head into Thursday, this is one of our little cutting systems. We used to get these a lot, where it's just an initial thump of snow, and then a change over to a mix, and then rain at the end. Again, this is what I think one of these systems is going to be. As modeled here by the GFS, you could see that initial thump of snow across portions of central Pennsylvania, eastern PA, and even into southeastern Pennsylvania. But as we march through, it's most likely going to be a Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, and into Thursday morning threat. As we march through this, the snow actually might hold on. That's something to watch, but again, that 540 line, very important. You see how far north it is, so it's going to be monitored how much cold air is actually going to be able to get to the ground and fall as snow. But again, we're going to probably see a changeover to a wintry mix as modeled here by Thursday morning. and then freezing rain and even possibly some showers to end off the system. Again, as we have a cutter low here, you have a warm front that just basically pushes warm air into the region. So basically, if you want a big snowstorm for Thursday, I don't think that's going to happen either, just because of that warm air and that cutting low pressure system. But as we move into the weekend, into Saturday and Sunday, again, it could potentially be another initial thump of snow before changing over to wintry mix and potentially some rain to end it. So it's gonna be something to watch throughout the week. It's a very active pattern we got here, and I'm gonna show you why in just a second. And we're gonna continue to have an active pattern through at least probably the 20th or so of February before we start to see any major changes in our pattern. But there's something I do want to mention. So we have our little system tomorrow. We have another system Thursday, which can bring initial thump of snow to wintry mix to rain, and then potentially the same thing for the weekend. But I would lean more on the warmer side for the weekend storm rather than the colder side. So basically, we're gonna look at some teleconnections. I made a post about this a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that kind of outlined our positive PNA, which meant that there's troughs in the east, ridging in the west, and that's why we had a more active pattern. And as you can see, the PNA, it's going to remain positive throughout at least mid-February and even into the end of February, most likely. So we're going to continue to have an active pattern. We're probably going to get cooler at some point with another Arctic blast around the 16th or 17th. I know, unfortunate. I don't want to deal with that either, but again, it's coming, and it's just this pattern is so active, and with this continuing positive PNA pattern, it's likely that more storm tracks are likely. And even as we look at the NAO, and the NAO is also very important to look at, or one of the things I look at just to see what kind of pattern we might be headed into. Again, we had that positive NAO just to start February, which means we had that southeast ridge, but that did open up storm tracks, even though it wasn't that cold. Storm tracks, and again, it's continuing right now, even though our NAO is slightly positive to near neutral right now. But a lot of the trends are suggesting that NAO may continue to be very neutral, which is actually good for us in storm tracks. Again, you won't, for big snow, you don't want too much cold because that suppresses all the storms south. We saw that with our New Orleans storm that happened just a few weeks ago, where New Orleans got 8 inches of snow. It's hard to believe that New Orleans gets more snow than us sometimes. Yeah, man, I tell you, the pattern, it just changes and it changes and changes. There's so much that goes into it. So you need to have a nice blend of, you need cold air, obviously, you need a cold air source, but you also need to have a favorable storm track for these systems to get big snow. And the last thing I want to look at for just this week is the MJO. The MJO is very important when it comes to just looking at the phases and seeing if we're in a colder phase or a warmer phase. Usually the warmer phases are 3, 4, 5, and 6 right over here on the right, and our colder phases are 7, 8, and 1. Now, in order for big snow potential, you kind of want the MJO to be in the 7, 8, and 1 phases, obviously. Although the NAO is looking neutral, it's not going to get too cold where I think those storm systems will be suppressed too far south. But again, it's something to watch over the next week or so. But the way to read this is here. So you have the 7th here and you have the 10th here. This is where we're at today. We're currently right on the border of phase 7. So we're going to be heading into a wintry phase pretty soon. And it looks like, honestly, it's going to hold on for most of the month. As these little spaghetti tracks here, you'll see these yellow lines. But the projected MJO is showing phase 7, phase 8, and potentially into phase 1 by the end of the month. So it's going to be a very active February. It's probably be slightly below average for the rest of the month. And we might even see an Arctic blast within the next week or so. Again, just a lot to deal with. I'm going to have a first call map out for our system Thursday tomorrow. And here we are. So here is my final call for the system tomorrow. I've made some changes from this morning. I basically knocked down most areas to 0 or coding to 1, especially out in central PA where the line of snow may not, or the northward extent of the snow, I should say, does not make it as far north as I originally thought. But again, as I mentioned, those little pockets of vorticity are likely going to favor some light snowfall accumulations, even north of I-80 in some spots. We'll expect Scranton less than an inch, and the highest accumulations will be in southern PA, southeastern PA, and south central PA with 2 to 4 inches. So the farther south you go, the better chance you have at seeing the snow with this system. And with that, I believe that's all I have for the week. Make sure you stay tuned for updates. This is Mike Javer at NEPA Weather Academy. See you in the next one.